You're listening to Doing Time, Talking Crime, a podcast that showcases the work being conducted at the Max Planck Institute for the Study of Crime, Security and Law in Freiburg, Germany. My name is Christopher Murphy, and I'll be talking to researchers from the fields of criminology, psychology and law. All this and more on Doing Time, Talking Crime. Well, hello and welcome back to Doing Time, Talking Crime. On today's episode, we're actually celebrating 20 years of EUCRIM, which is a journal that's often been described as the instruction manual for European law. Now, putting together a journal for 20 years requires a lot of time, energy, and, above all, talented personnel. I believe there's roughly half a dozen, perhaps a little more, who are actually responsible for putting each and every issue of EUCRIM together and making sure that it rolls out on time every time. I can't, unfortunately, fit them all in the studio today, though, so I have three representatives who are going to tell us all about EUCRIM on behalf of the crew back at the Institute. I am very happy to be joined then today by Thomas Wahl, who is the managing editor of the journal, by Anna Pingen, who is the co-editor, and by Indira T, who is, let me get this correct, the language consultant for the journal. Welcome, each of you, to the show.
Hi, Chris. Thank you. Hi.
Thank you.
Great to have you all here. Wonderful. So, it's going to be a bit of a different chat today, but I'm very much looking forward to it. Thomas, I wanted to start with you, managing editor. I got one thing I need to clear up first, the pronunciation. I'm used to it being called EUCRIM, but it could be pronounced EUCRIM or EUCRIM, or what is the pronunciation of this journal?
There is, I think, no exact pronunciation. Yeah, it depends from the cultural background. Yeah, some say EUCRIM. I think most Germans say EUCRIM. The French perhaps EUCRIM. Yeah, so they are very different. But we do not worry about that.
Okay, and it stands for EU crime.
For being a forum on European criminal law and related issues.
Okay, thank you. So I'm going to stick with you then, because I'd like to take a little stroll down memory lane, if you will. Can you maybe tell us about why the journal came about and how?
Yeah, I think there are two events that happened at the turn of the millennium. The first was that especially German scholars were very critical on the EU influence on national criminal law. And national criminal law was a bastion, reserve, and a lot of people thought EU law has nothing to do with that. But that changed with the Amsterdam Treaty, and the German criminal law scholars met in an extraordinary meeting in 2003 in Dresden, fiercely discussing this influence.
And the Amsterdam Treaty was to extend criminal...
It extended the competence of the
okay.
EU to criminal law issues. Professor Sieber, who was at that time a new director of the Max Planck Institute on Foreign and International Criminal Law, said, if you wish to talk about what is going on in Brussels, which is very dynamic, of course, you need continuously and reliable information, what is happening. And then he had the idea of a newsletter, which we do, and to present this newsletter, of course, not only to German lawyers, but also to every interested person in Europe. And this is also why our main language is English.
Okay. Right, so it started as a newsletter, EUCRIM, or EUCRIM was still not born at this stage?
The second event that I would like to mention is, and this is, I think, very important for the listeners to note, that in the 90s, so-called associations for the protection of the EU's financial interests and of European criminal law established. Mm-hmm. And the common bond of these associations was a journal, at that time called Argon. And this journal ceased also at the turn of the millennium, and EUCRIM took over also this task.
Okay.
And this is why we have now also a very fruitful collaboration with the EU, especially with the European Anti-Fraud Office. This explains also that we have a second big section with articles where people interested in this topic can present their ideas and visions about how to shape European criminal law. And this also explains a little bit our focus, which is on the protection of the EU's financial interests, in French dubbed PIF. which has always been the laboratory and power unit for the development of European criminal law.
The newsletter you mentioned, though, that still exists, or that kind of all got rolled into...
This explains a little bit that we combine two elements in EUCRIM, mainly the newsletter or reporting with short writings about the ongoing developments in our area. And the second part, the articles, more or less scientific articles, as a common law journal.
Understood. Well, I guess then I'd like to ask 20 years, it's a long time. If we had issue number 1, 2006, and put issue number 1, 2026 next to each other, I mean, how would you say that things have developed, or where's the emphasis now compared to where it once was?
It depends, yeah. Lawyers always say
lawyer's
depends.
Answer, yes.
We have some perennial favorites, I would say. Yeah? Most popular example is the European arrest warrant. We had this as the main topic in our very first issue in 2006, and this is a repeating topic. Yeah? We had it also in our very last issue about the execution of a European arrest warrant in Italy in the context of the Nord Stream pipeline attack. Mm-hmm. So this is a recurring...
An evergreen.
Yeah. The second is that we included new topics, for example, the rule of law. Listeners may ask, what have the rule of law to do with criminal law? Yeah, but we have in the EU the so-called conditionality mechanism. That means if a member state breaches rule of law principles affecting or risk affecting the protection of the EU's financial interests, it can face consequences, suspension of payments or financial corrections. Then another example is the Ukraine conflict, which also impacts the EU budget and other matters of justice and home affairs.
Mm-hmm. So it sounds like there's also more political issues also kind of sneaking in.
Yeah.
Okay, right.
And of course also the digital revolution came up, which we also included.
That's
think
right.
Anna can tell
Yes, I was going to
more.
ask Anna a little bit about that as well.
And perhaps the third thing in a more general basis is that we can observe a shift in the last decade, I would say, from what is administrative law and what is criminal law. Yeah? There is a big delusion about these topics or about these areas of law. And EUCRIM reacted on this, of course, because it's the fundamental question, how would you like to regulate public security? With which means of law? And this is also one of the major topics of the new public law department of the Max Planck Institute under the lead of Professor Poscher. And we are very glad that we are now under this heading and can dedicate to this fragmentation, I would say.
Okay.
So we talk also about, and I think this is a very nice notion, I like it very much, about administrative justice. It's an
administrative
justice.
Okay. An amalgamation between criminal and administrative.
Yes, that is an artificial term that expresses this delusion between administrative and criminal law, to which we are very much dedicated.
Okay. Well, thank you very much for giving us a rundown on the history of EUCRIM or EUCRIM or however one wants to call it.
Yeah.
So I thought before I come to you, Anna, I wanted to kind of spice things up a little bit today by putting in some fun facts about the journal. And I thought the first fun fact, which was really interesting, is that it's actually been I think, Thomas, you referred to it as a cross-media platform from the very get-go. So it was always online and a limited print run. And though over the last few years you've really put a lot of effort into getting the online, turning it into what I guess you would call it an open access juggernaut. I mean, everything you publish is open access, is that correct?
Correct. Even diamond open access.
Diamond open access.
So there are no fees for the authors and for the readers.
Okay, brilliant. And you've done, so not only open access, but the last 20 years, 400 articles with 390 authors, 70 plus guest editorials with high-ranking EU officials. And Thomas, I know you're in charge of the news articles, 2,500 of them. That's a lot of news.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's right.
That's a lot of news.
So this shows the dynamic, and this shows also that what Professor Sieber said in 2006, 20 years ago, is still valid.
Yep, absolutely. Well, Anna, I'd like to now come to you. We've talked a little bit about the past with Thomas. Let's talk about the present. Thomas kind of hinted at it there that the focus of the journal is changing. The articles that are written there, we've got articles about AI, we've got articles about hate speech, digital regulation. I guess these are not necessarily traditional criminal law topics. They're the what was that before? Criministrative topics. How would you say that EUCRIM is nonetheless helping lawyers kind of navigate these new frontiers?
Right. So first, I think that you mentioned hate speech, and this goes along with the whole speech regulation, which is not such a new topic to criminal law in itself. I mean, speech offenses and especially incitement have been around for quite some time. We mentioned digital regulation, which indeed is more new, but then again, cybercrime has been talked about for decades, especially at the Institute. But you're absolutely right that AI is one of the newer topics. And the scale of the debates is really impressive. And it shows that it is invoking new questions, especially about automation, enforcement, and so on. And you're absolutely right to say that EUCRIM has tackled all of those subjects at a certain point in the history of EUCRIM. The first issue of 2023, for example, was focused on AI, which I think is really interesting.
Definitely. I mean, you were kind of possibly even a bit ahead of the curve, I'd say there.
We were at the beginning.
At the beginning, that's
absolutely,
right. Mm-hmm.
Absolutely. What is really important to say is that EUCRIM tries to act as kind of a bridge in these debates. So we report on regulatory developments, new EU legislation, important case law, also institutional changes, but we also publish, as it has been said, analytical articles that can help to understand that what these developments mean, basically, across Europe. So in that sense, EUCRIM kind of works like a translation space, connecting EU policy debates, technological changes, but also traditional criminal law thinking and debates.
Okay. And the audience that you write for or produce EUCRIM for is European lawyers, interested public, Ursula von der Leyen? I don't know.
Basically, it's for everybody that is interested in these questions and these topics. We have heard a lot of practitioners reading EUCRIM, and they are really also looking online for the news. I know that we have some news items that are continuously on certain topics. For example, the war in Ukraine, but also on Poland, right, Thomas? You
rule of law developments in Poland and Hungary, of course. Yeah.
And of course, also like new regulation AI. We have news item that is continuously on AI. So meaning that in every issue, we have a news items going back several months and having a look at everything that has happened, basically.
Okay. Right, so you've got quite a broad audience then.
Absolutely,
okay.
Absolutely.
This is one of our main goals, to not be a scientific journal for scholars or for academics, but also to include practitioners, policymakers. And we are read from the side of legal practitioners who wish to be informed what are new case law of the European Court of Justice on a certain topic of judicial cooperation, which countries accessed a certain convention or something like this.
Yeah, I mean, I can imagine that's a really important role because I think EU law is traditionally complex, and I can imagine that's what I said at the start. You know, it's often seen as kind of one of the key instruments for people who are interested in finding out about what's happening across the EU is EUCRIM. So, Anna, you often work closely as the co-editor with a lot of the authors who submit articles for publication. What's one piece of advice that you find that you would often give to budding legal scholars?
I'm going to make it two pieces of advice.
That's allowed.
All right. The first one is keep it short. Especially keep it shorter than you think what you should be doing. Oftentimes, be it academics or practitioners that have been working in the field for quite some time, when you publish, you have a lot of work put into it, a lot of thoughts. You have been working on the subjects for weeks, months, perhaps years. So sometimes there is a wish to put too much in one sentence than a sentence could possibly do, basically.
Okay.
So I always refer to what my English teacher said when I was in school. Keep it short and simple. And this is something that everybody should be doing when writing. Try to keep your sentences short and go to the essential. If you have an idea, try to cut it down in several sentences. I think this is really important. Another piece of advice is keep in mind that you are writing for people outside your jurisdiction, outside of your national debates. So when you're using terms or when you're using political debates that are known in your country, it doesn't mean that it's known everywhere else. So break it down, make it understandable, and don't assume that every term is known and that you can translate every notion easily in another language, because that doesn't work like this.
Okay, two very interesting and good points. I knew it as keep it simple, stupid. I think yours is a nicer way. Keep it short
and simple.
I like that. Very nice. Okay. And of course, acronyms and the like. Obviously, EU is famous for its acronyms. I'm guessing each country also has its acronyms, and you'd say that should be spelt out, made more clear. Okay. Thank you very much. Then I think it's time for fun fact number 2. We're rolling along nicely here. I like this fun fact. This is my favorite one. Thomas helped me out here. He measured the journals for me, and we looked, and if we piled all the journals that have been published since 2006, they would be over 5 meters tall, which is the size of a fully grown giraffe, 97 Big Macs, I think we can round that up to 100, or 3.3 Danny DeVitos. So I thought that was a good way to measure things. And I think, Thomas, you also did the weight, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, and it came in at nearly 14 kilos of published material, which is 65 Big Macs. Now, I don't know why I'm measuring everything in Big Macs, but nonetheless, I think it's very impressive, the amount, obviously, of legal knowledge that's then been published over the last 20 years, if you think about that, 5 meters tall. As I say, keep up the good work, guys. Right, now we're going to you, Indira. All right, so Indira T, you are the language, or one of the language consultants for EUCRIM. What exactly does this involve?
Language consultant is really a fancy word for a language editor. So basically someone who reviews and improves the clarity, grammar, style, and overall quality of written content. And the focus is not just on correcting spelling and punctuation, but also on enhancing flow, tone, and readability. Our authors are not usually native speakers of English, which means the articles usually need to be tweaked a little bit, and some even need quite an overhaul. But English is a very forgiving language, meaning that we usually know what the author wants to say, and it's our job to help him or her say it.
Are you directly in touch with the authors, or is that run over Thomas and Anna?
It's a 2-step process. Mm-hmm. So usually Thomas and Anna have the final say.
Okay.
So my work feeds into their work.
Sure.
Usually Thomas and Anna will content edit an article first, and then it comes to me for language editing, and then it goes back to them. Okay.
So each article gets moved around quite a lot before it's published.
Yeah, it is a 2-step procedure. Yep. Mm-hmm. Yeah? So me and Anna, we do a kind of scientific editing, meaning is it logic, does the structure correct or understandable? Are the sentences short and understandable also for lawyers that are not in this jurisdiction, etc. And then it goes to Indira, who does the language polishing. And then, of course, all our remarks are written in the document and is sent back to the author.
Okay.
Yeah. And sometimes we revise something, and then we must ask the author, is this really what you wanted to say? That happens also quite often. Yeah.
I see.
That's one of my favorite comments. Is this what you want to say? Or will the reader understand this?
Okay, understood.
And to take up what Anna said earlier, my motto is be kind to your reader. So also break long sentences up into 2. Don't assume your reader knows what you're talking about if you introduce a new term. And always write out an abbreviation in full the first time you use it. For example, the Bulgarian Penal Code instead of just BPC, that kind of thing.
Okay.
And don't get me started on verb tenses. Thomas and I have had many an exchange on tenses.
I see. Got a bit tense, the exchange on tenses.
It's a very, sometimes very interesting.
I wanted to ask, do you also read Thomas's news articles? And how are they?
Tricky. Actually, I don't read many of Thomas' news articles anymore.
I think she's reading mine, right?
Yours, and we have another correspondent, Conny Riele. But Thomas, I must say, is very articulate.
I can well imagine. That's right. 20 years managing editor.
20 years of experience.
That's right. Okay. Well, then, Indira, I wanted to ask you a second question about language editing, which I suppose also looks a little bit at the history of the EU and how it's expanded over the decades from a small club to a pretty large club now. I don't know, Thomas, how many are in there at the moment? How many countries are in the EU?
27.
27. That was a quick.
Okay.
That's good. You passed the test.
Yeah.
Okay. How would you say, Indira, that the flavour of the language used has changed as the European Union has expanded?
Well, language is generally a living thing, and the more countries that join the Union, the more multicultural the environment becomes. And since many writers are non-native speakers, they tend to use cautious formal language to avoid misinterpretation or to avoid making overly strong, even politically incorrect statements. And the language of the European Union is often referred to as Eurospeak, long and complicated sentences, so-called nested sentences.
Nested sentences, okay.
Or use of the passive voice. These requirements are fulfilled by the chamber instead of the chamber fulfilled these requirements. And what I still can't get used to is in future instead of in the future. Why is that?
I've no idea. In future.
Of course, the many acronyms like ECHR and ECTHR or TEU and TFEU. Tricky, by the way, to tell them apart.
Yes, I'm lost already.
And as Anna mentioned before, the language of the EU has also expanded to accommodate the growth of new topics like cybercrime, artificial intelligence, security law. As far as English-speaking countries, I guess Malta is probably considered one of the English-speaking countries, and maybe Ireland probably are the two English.
I think Cyprus.
Cyprus as well. Okay, yes.
But it is not the.
It's interesting though that
majority.
That's not the majority. That's right. Yeah. Do you also publish in French? I thought I had this somehow because I know you are bilingual, correct?
Absolutely.
Yeah. French articles do appear from time to time in the same issue as an.
Absolutely. I think in the year we have like 3 to 4 articles in French, and then I do the language consultancy in this case.
Okay, right. But French and English are the two, or primarily English and a little bit of French. Then.
And German.
And German. So we are a trilingual journal. However, what I must clarify, the news are all in English because, of course, we reach the most audience. But articles can be submitted in German, French, and English. But also, I would say over 95% is English because this is the lingua franca. If you wish that your ideas and visions are understood by the entire European Union or entire Europe, then you must publish in English, of course.
Then let's go back to English. Indira, I wanted to ask you, are there any false friends, if you will, so maybe words or phrases that mean something in one language but mean something entirely different in English that keep you awake at night? Well, interestingly, the better an author's command of English, the more false friends tend to crop up. Why? Because compared to, say, German, there are so many more synonyms in the English language to choose from. Take, for instance, a fruitful collaboration. It's not entirely wrong, but it's more natural to say a productive collaboration. What's really wrong is Ursula von der Leyen replaces Jean-Claude Juncker. It should be von der Leyen succeeds Juncker. Yeah, because it reminds me in German that they call a classic car an old-timer as well. I always like that, and I always think when people talk about old timers, I don't know, in Australia, that's certainly an older person rather than an old car.
Yeah.
I think also evergreen is not what we in German mean with evergreen is not what you mean in evergreen.
That's right. Ursula von der Leyen replaces old-timer evergreen Juncker. All right. Thank you very much, Indira. So, but that's all right. Doesn't sound like you're losing too much sleep over EUCRIM.
No, I sleep quite well, actually.
Very good.
Despite EUCRIM.
Perhaps what is interesting in terms of language is that we have a lot of summaries of court judgments, European Court of Justice. And my impression is that the original language the judgments are written on is French. And though the lawyer linguists at the court in Luxembourg translate, of course, from French to English, or sometimes they perhaps also they translate from Romanian to English, depending on the language of the case. And often we take over this syntax, and then I give it to Indira, and she says, an English native speaker would never write this, because French is also quite complicated with a lot of additional sentences in one sentence, etc. I think Anna can confirm this.
Absolutely.
And this is also very interesting how language is developing, especially in the legal sphere.
Yeah. So, speaking of publication, Anna, I wanted to ask you again. EU law, we've touched on that today. It's doesn't have to be, pretty complex though. Even though this complexity exists, how does the journal act then as a springboard for young scholars who are at the beginning of their careers to publish in this complex field?
EUCRIM has always been quite inclusive in its authorship. So I think we can be a springboard not only for young researchers, but in general. As it has been already mentioned, we have authors that are practitioners, so judges, prosecutors, people working at EU institutions, and also academics. We have PhD students, we have postdocs, we have senior researchers, we have professors. So everybody is represented and everybody has a chance to publish in EUCRIM. I think that's quite unique and probably pushes EUCRIM also on the forefront. Another thing, the accessibility. As it has been already mentioned, EUCRIM is published. The articles can be written in 3 languages. So you can choose the language you feel the most comfortable in to publish. And that's really, I think, again, a special feature of EUCRIM. Another thing, you already mentioned it, we are diamond open access. So there are no fees for the author, no fees for the reader. And this is also coming to a broader idea that scholarly knowledge should circulate freely and not depend on commercial publishing models. I think those are really important points for also young scholars to consider, because if you publish open access, more people are going to be able to read it because it's not behind a paywall. I think this is really pushing young scholars. Another thing is, again, it has been also mentioned, we are offering an editorial work. So Thomas and myself, we are looking at the articles. We are giving comments. We are trying to help make the article even better. And then you have the language experts that are looking over the text and that can also push the text to even be better than it was before. And those are all helps that especially young scholars can be really thankful for, I think.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. I think they're all very, very valid points, as you say, not only the open access, but also the support that a young scholar or any scholar, for that matter of fact, would receive is really impressive, I'd say.
But we must admit that, of course, all these possibilities are based on the EU funding that we have. So we are very thankful, of course, that we can offer then a diamond open access because we have no publisher behind us that wants to earn money. So it is also the EU funding that helps us a lot.
Okay. And Thomas, you would go from time to time to the EU's main buildings there in Brussels or the court in Strasbourg. Do you see the journal lying around there on coffee tables?
Yes.
Must be a good feeling.
It was good a feeling, yeah.
Well, we're kind of coming to an end, but I've got one more fun fact today. And this is really impressive that the journal is actually, it's European focused, European law, criminal law, administrative law. but it's read in 120 countries. I mean, you have people who access the website from 120 countries. So clearly, I mean, it's a powerful voice for what's going on in European justice. So again, congratulations. Very good. 20-year retrospective, almost up. Indira, I wanted to ask you, before I shoot my final question to Thomas, what would you say is the funniest, almost difficult, but I would prefer the funniest, lost in translation moment that you've had over the time you've been with the journal?
How to choose? I have a couple of favorites. Since I do more editing than translating, how about the prosecution for money laundry?
Oh, yes.
Instead of money laundering.
That's good. Yep. Mm-hmm.
Or a violation of the Charter amounts to a fragrant denial of justice.
Ooh.
Instead of a flagrant
yes,
denial
a
of
fragrant
justice.
denial of justice. That is a good one.
And last not least, when the manuscript of the Charter was finished, the European representatives avoided singing it instead of signing it.
I like those ones. So you've kind of kept a little tally of the good ones over the years. Yeah,
I have.
I like that. Fragrance good. Okay, so there have been some lighter moments whilst doing all this editing and proofreading as well.
Yeah, I mean, it's dry work sometimes because it's law. It's European law.
Somebody
but
had to say
it's
it.
also rewarding because every now and then an author will thank you for making his text sound and read better.
Oh, that's lovely. Positive. That's really nice when you hear back from an author
And
in that
also,
regard.
we've been working together, the three of us, almost the entire 20 years. So there's a lot of trust and
It's a good
the
team
machine
environment.
is well
The
oiled.
machine is
It's
well
a
oiled
really good team.
and fragrant. Yeah.
Also with the others, doing the typesetting. Our apprentice who is with us today and listening, who do the dispatch of the print
Okay.
journals.
So pretty much everything is in-house with EUCRIM.
Yeah.
Okay. Very impressive. Well, Thomas, 20 years, you get the final question, managing editor. I wanted to ask you, and I think you might have actually brought it along today. It's sitting here in front of us as we record, whether you have a specific item or a mascot that's perhaps survived the 20-year journey that you've been on.
Yeah, I brought with us the little EU flag on a wooden stick. I think I bought it in one of my first journeys to Brussels, where we discussed EUCRIM with Olaf and initiated the project. And this reminds me every day of the journey that we have taken over the 20 years. And also it reminds me of our mission that EUCRIM stands for. So raising awareness about ongoing developments in administrative law of the European Union and also the Council of Europe. Also being a promoter for the exchange of ideas and models, and also being a forum for all kinds of lawyers or also non-lawyers who wish to publish, being legal practitioners, academics, policymakers, etc., who all shape the future of European justice.
Okay. And you see that all when you look at your little flag.
Yeah,
That's
indeed.
very nice. For our listeners who probably can't, well, we'll take some photos and put them on LinkedIn, but it's quite a faded little EU flag.
Yeah,
but,
the color vanished already a little bit.
It shows that it's been on a long journey with you. Yeah.
But Europe is still there.
Europe is still there, absolutely. So, well, I'd like to thank all three of you so much for joining me today. I had a fun little discussion, and I would certainly say that the EUCRIM looks like it's in very competent, fragrant, singing hands. So keep up the good work, guys.
Thank you for having us.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you'd like to listen to additional podcasts or learn more about our research, visit us at csl.mpg.de.